So the name of the song is So Many Things, which apparently was just titled yesterday. But that's actually the point of this whole month. Balancing the so many things in your life. How many people feel that they could say that there are a lot of things going on in their life? Raise your hand. Okay. It's a busy time. I love that Reverend Sharon, when she retired, she was like, I'm so looking forward to just being in retirement. And she's like, I'm so busy now, I wish I was back at work. So it's really is. There's just so many things for us to pay attention to and to balance in our lives. And any one of them can suddenly seem bigger than the rest, reach out, and literally occupy our time, yes? Something can just come along and derail our balance. And all of a sudden, that's all that we think about it. It like occupies our mind ad nauseum. And I've used that word on purpose. So the lyrics, she says, the brakes are pulled, they screech to a stop. The time has finally come. I start to stand, my feet move on, and my heart beats like a drum. So she's describing here this moment in time when all of a sudden, we've reached this precipice and we've said to ourselves, something's got to happen here. Something's got to give. Anybody have that happen in their life? Something's got to change. Something wants to change here. Something wants to come through me. I can feel it. Right, Heather? I can feel that there's something in me that wants to use me even more. And then she goes on to say, ready to return, feel the love I once knew, and know the passion in my veins. I feel like every single person in this room, every person that tunes in and online, you are all here for a divine purpose. You were called here by something bigger than you, and yet it is you. To hear these words today, to hear this message today that I have heard as I've put it together, and literally it rocked my world saying, okay, so there is this moment in time when something wants to go a step further. I mean, look at this week in politics. People were riveted to the television on Thursday watching what our country has turned into, which seems divisive, but really it's just two factions learning how to get together and become one. Isn't that really our journey anyway? Our journey is to stop putting God out here and me out here and saying we are one with each other. No, our journey is to let that happen and then live from that. And yet, when I went to bed on Thursday night, I knew in my heart, I said, this will unfold perfectly. I don't know how, it doesn't matter, but it will unfold perfectly no matter what. And I'm talking about the confirmation of Justice Kavanaugh. So I woke up and watched it, and watched it, and watched it, and then that one moment when something just had to happen so that there can be a healing, regardless of the outcome. The outcome's not the issue. It's the journey. It's not what we're going to get to. It's how are you going to get there? And watching that, I have to tell you, my eyes filled with tears because as soon as one person pushed it a little step further, more people went, yeah, no, yeah. But it takes that one person. It takes that truth inside of someone to tap into and say, there's more here to know. The title of my message today is The Tipping Point. I didn't see it till just now. Isn't that awesome? Yeah. Is that a picture of Laura's? It's not Laura's? Because Laura has something in my office like this that she built for me with all the qualities of God, all these rocks that pile up. And somehow, they've only fallen over once. And I think it was because someone was in there, because I came in and they had fallen over. But they just stayed perfectly balanced. So the tipping point. So how many of you know what a tipping point is? Okay, so let me read a couple of the definitions here. The tipping point is the point at which a series of small changes or incidents become significant enough to cause a larger, more important change. the critical point in any situation. So our lives can roll along and all of a sudden reach this moment when we are at choice and something wants to move in some direction, and we are at choice there to actually give it a little nudge and push it to the tipping point, move it into action, or to retreat. It goes on to say, the tipping point is the critical point in an evolving situation that leads to a new and irreversible development. And then he says the critical mass, the threshold, the boiling point. And I loved that, the boiling point. How many of you have ever felt that thing inside of you that is just boiling up and you're like, something's got to happen here? How many of you felt that? I have felt, everybody should have felt that at some point in their life where it's like, I don't know what it is, but something is. I feel like I should just start singing from West Side Story. I heard it as I said it. Could be, who knows? Anyway, if only I understood this then, I might have played Tony and not Riff. So that thing inside of you that just has to move forward. Ministers find that. I found it in Dr. Walker's church. I became a minister. I was his staff minister for a year, and I kept sitting there going, yeah, something else has to happen. I'm sure there's something more for me, and I kept fighting it until one day I just couldn't. I'm sitting in an audience like this watching somebody speak, and I looked up and I went, oh, damn. I know what I have to do. And that thing, you know, and I most of you heard this story where I turned to Kevin and said, I'm going to have to open a church. And he was just like, no. He said, you will ruin every Sunday for the rest of our lives. And I was like, only if you let it. And it hasn't. It actually has made every Sunday for the rest of my life wonderful. Him, we'll see. So that's the thing that I want to talk about today, that tipping point. The critical point in any situation that leads to a new and irreversible development. Malcolm Gladwell wrote a book called The Tipping Point, How Little Things Can Make a Big Difference. Little things. You know, these tipping points aren't these monumental. Mine was kind of big when I was like, oh my God. It's not. It's just that next little choice you have to make. That next little step that literally pushes you. You know, like you're at the top of one of those, you climb up to that huge, anybody been to the Palm Springs water park? There is a ride there that literally goes like that. Straight down. Nora, right? It goes straight down. And when we were there, Kevin and Will were determined, we got to ride that. And Nora and I were like, absolutely not. This is just not going to happen. But of course, through peer pressure and husband pressure, we both climbed, didn't we? But I think we climbed and went down about 20 times.
A couple of years we did that.
Yes. Then
1 year we did it.
yeah. And then we stopped doing it. We let them do it and went crazy. But it is this, that's what I say, but that's this tipping point. You go all the way to the top, and when you get to the top, by the way, it looks scary because it's straight down, and you're like, how do I get this next step? And that's really what's going on in life. How do you make that next step when it looks so scary to just go? And it is surrender. You know, first you had to sit down, which felt a lot better than standing, and then you have to just give into it. And you do it once. Because I did it once. It hurts. But tipping point doesn't hurt, and your life doesn't hurt. Sometimes it does. But sometimes it doesn't. Yes. So he says this. Here's his quote. Look at the world around you. It may seem like an immovable, implacable place, but it is not. With the slightest push in just the right place, it can be tipped. With the slightest push in just the right place, it can be tipped. But my question is, does it take a boiling point for the tipping to happen? No, it doesn't. Every single one of you here today is sitting in the midst of a consciousness that has multiple situations just waiting for you to take the slightest little crevice of a move to tip yourself into an evolving situation. doesn't take it to all blow up to make a decision. We get to do this every single day. And last week I said, if you are awake and alive and pay attention to what's going on in your life, you'll see every one of those tipping points, and you'll be able to make the choice. So I want to talk about your mind and how your mind is part of this tipping point. Last week I asked you to notice your state of consciousness, decide where you want it, and then balance it out with the truth. The easy as 1, 2, 3. Notice it. Really notice what is going on, decide what you want to happen, and then balance it out. This week, I get to take you that little step further. I notice it. I've decided what I want to have happen here. I am in balance, but what is going to tip me to raise the consciousness of this from balance to a higher level of balance? What's going to push me off balance for a second to go whoosh, or what's going to do it? Your mind. Your mind. Because the universe is going to balance your life no matter what happens. That's what I went to bed with Thursday night, recognizing that no matter what happened, our country is safe, our country is healthy, our country is vibrant, it is evolving, it is growing. We are not stagnant. We are not being drawn down by any individual situation. Because life will always balance. Life will always unify itself to its strengths. I knew that. I still had a scenario I wanted to happen, but I knew it. And I watched as it continued to evolve. So you are sitting here with so many opportunities, as Nora's song says, and Matthew's song says. So many things that I can and I can't, I will and I won't. So many things in my life that I know are just poised to happen. What's the tipping point? Which ones are you going to point to and say, it's this one. I'm going to choose this, and I'm going to move it forward. It's something for you to think about. You know what? Because the balance of the universe, it can balance you way down here in the unhappy, kind of undecided life. It can also balance you up here in the most amazing life, in the most successful, vibrant, healthy, passionate, fun, loving life. It will balance you wherever you choose to live, but it will balance you. So once we get that, once we know that, isn't it our job, our responsibility, our opportunity to say, all right, I would like to do this, and tip ourselves in the direction of that happening? Now you may be sitting here saying, how? How? How do we do that? Well, first of all, it takes you to notice where you are and notice what you want, and then decide to have it. So here's my last definition of the tipping point. It says, the tipping point is that magic moment when an idea, a trend, or a social behavior crosses a threshold, tips, and spreads like wildfire. I love all these words. When an idea, a trend, or a social behavior crosses the threshold, tips, and spreads like wildfire. And in his book, he mentions the wildfire spread of hush puppies. Do you all, how many people here ever owned a pair of hush puppies? Really? That's all? I'm amazed. I have a pair still. I do. And I loved when I read this, I was like, anything can become some crazy fad. That's what the tipping point is. It's where somebody makes this bold statement or this bold idea. I think your daughter, Bella's going to do that. She's going to create these crazy clothes and then just walk out into the world, and next thing you know, everybody's got them. That's how this happens. And it takes that one mind. And I love this. He also talks about this thing called the law of the few. And we know this. 80% of the movement of the world is being pushed by 20% of the people who inhabit it. 80% of the movement of the world. So that means 80% of what is going on in this world is because 20% of the people who inhabit it are tippers. Big tippers. Are people who tip the scales. Are people who are unafraid to really take that next step, regardless of what it looks like. We went to see Crazy Rich Asians last night, which was just hysterical. And I just thought it was going to be a funny movie. I was crying my eyes out. It was so romantic. I was like, and Nora, every time I cry at a movie, she like grabs my hand like, please don't. Because you did, you heard me going, and the little hand comes over. Maybe that was a loving one. That was support. It was love, yeah. That's nice to know. But I'm sitting there, and the movie just was amazing and funny and emotional. And, and they do an ad beforehand, they did a promo for A Star is Born, which I cannot wait to watch. Bradley Cooper, I love. Lady Gaga, I have to tell you, she's who I really want to bring this up for. Talk about the tipping point. Lady Gaga walked into a world that said, you're not attractive enough, you need to fix your nose, blah, blah, blah. And she just said, got wacky, crazy dressed in these amazing images and paradigm shifts. And then, do you all remember the time she went on the Oscars? Now, none of us had ever seen her do this before. All we knew was Lady Gaga, that crazy, out there performance artist. That's how I thought of her. Then she went on the Oscars and dared to sing the Sound of Music song that no one had sang since Julie Andrews and made any sense out of it, and blew us out of the water. And we're like, oh my God, she's talented. As if all that wasn't talented. That was just my judgment. I'm like, she really has this talent. And now, there she is on a screen, no makeup, acting her heart out in these promos, and I'm like, here's probably the Oscar winner next year. Now, this is a woman who tips at every moment. And she doesn't do it by being bigger and bigger and bigger. Sometimes she does it by just getting more and more honest. And she didn't care. If you ever heard her speak, she's like, it's not that not that I don't care what people think. I just don't let what people think change what I know is mine to do. So, are you part of the 80%? Or are you part of the 20%? Logic would tell me that most people in New Thought are part of the 20% because they are renegades. You're sitting in this church in this center, because you don't like the word church. No. You're sitting in this room because you said, this traditional stuff doesn't work for me. I want something that maybe makes better sense to you, something that maybe feels better to you. I don't know about you, but I would rather sit in a room where someone's telling me how powerful I am than someone telling me what a sinner I am. I just would. And I think the world would benefit by more people telling them that. And yet, I also honor and respect anyone that kind of life works for. Because frankly, it's over 80% of the world. You are part of a very small minority. But with that comes responsibility. We talked last week about demonstration. Are you going to demonstrate the life you want? You're in this center. This is what I spend all of my life understanding. How does the mind work? How do I tip it in that direction? I had an experience this week dealing with someone that I've dealt with for the last 20 some odd years. And as my husband says, it's the one area of my life where I can be considered crazy because I will not learn from experience. And I finally hit the tipping point this last week. I looked back at everything that had been done, and I saw what was being done right this second, and it tipped me over. There was a belief in me. I went, no, you know what? I finally get it. And I tipped over, and I am solidly in that new area of understanding. And that's okay. I'm okay with the fact that it took me 20 years to figure it out. Because guess what? I figured it out. It's the process. It's not the destination. It's the journey. That's what a tipping point is. So what's it going to take in whatever you pull up right now to decide, I would love to tip over into action on this thing in my life. I would like to do this and really succeed at this. Because you can. Our science says you can if you believe you can. And if you believe you can, there's nothing stopping you from going over that edge and tipping yourself in the direction of what you want to accomplish. But Ernest Holmes says this: how much can one demonstrate? Just what one can believe. How much can we see? How much can we accept? How much can we find in our consciousness that is no longer repudiated by our own denials? Whatever that is, that much we can have. So there is work to do. There is work to see, what do I believe? What am I living from? How am I living? What beliefs are holding me back? And then once we understand it and get it, we tip it in the direction of where we want to go. As the end of the song says, the thing I most love about this song is that at the end it says, I know who I am and where I want to go. Every single person in this auditorium today and online, whoever watches this, you need to be able to look yourself in the mirror and say, I know who I am and where I want to go. And where I want to go is mine to go. So climb up that ladder, stand at the top of that precipice, stand right there and say, I am willing to tip this in the direction of my dreams, to take my dreams and live them, to take what is mine to do and do it, to know that nothing can stop me from going where I want to go, being who I want to be, living in the soundest body, the most clear mind, the most loving relationships, and so much money that I will have to give it, most of it away, just to be able to do what I want to do in life. That's the life we get to live. So tip it over. Namaste. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.